Welcome and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Andrew Lowe's. With me today is Ryan McKay, master of all things Microsoft Cloud. Thank you for joining
I'll
us
take.
again here. So, we came back today. We wanted to really talk about the Exchange PowerShell version 1 retirement. It's nice. Somebody gets to retire, right? What a fantastic time coming up. End of this year. I think it's December that this is going to be retiring. And we
Yep.
should be clear since we're recording, right? Somebody could be listening to this in 5 years. It's December 31st, 2022 that it's retiring. So this is really cool because this was the first kind of full iteration of the PowerShell module for Exchange that allowed us to connect remotely. It allowed us to use MFA and be more secure, but it has some
hmm
challenges. It still uses basic auth under the hood, and there's some newer, more modern, more secure ways that we can connect to our Exchange Online environment.
It's served us well, Andrew, and we wish it well in its retirement, and we look forward to working with the new
Cool.
module.
Well, let's take a bit of a look at that as soon as we come back. We'll be right back with version 2. And we're back. And as promised, we'll talk about version 1 some more and version 2. I'm just kidding. so,
Absolutely.
so this is really how we manage our Exchange deployments and Exchange Online deployments at scale, right? So PowerShell is how we can do things, affect change. Let's say we can get information and we can set new information or change information on many accounts by cycling through and using some logic and applying it and running it down through pipelines. And this is really how kind of everybody really started. Just, I'm going to say maybe a few years ago now with version 1. But yeah, I know I don't want to talk about the years right now. But I think it's interesting for me because one of the things that we see often is, our clients and other organizations, everybody really says, you know what, we want you to connect to our environment using multi-factor authentication. Honestly, I couldn't agree more. This was how we did that. It was how we started to secure environments. And under the hood,
Yep.
it was using basic authentication. And, we make no bones about calling that out around here on Azure Tracks and
Absolutely.
on MS Cloud Quick Fix. I should say it full, shouldn't I? Sorry, Ryan. Microsoft Cloud Quick
That's
Fix. So we like to talk about kind of all the things of Microsoft Cloud. And this is a really cool one, quite timely. It's good to remind everybody. In fact, we both did some posts earlier in this week on our LinkedIn. And this is an important topic
yep.
to talk about because it's part of an overall strategy, right?
Yeah, it's an important transition that Microsoft's making, and to step things back, modern authentication was in the works long before today. It got a little bit of a reprieve in its deployment with the pandemic, and in the interests of Microsoft, that they didn't want to change or force clients and force administrators to change the way they were working. But as we've transitioned out of the pandemic and are now in sort of a post-pandemic world, what we're seeing at Microsoft and with some of the offerings and whatnot is some of the things that were put on hold back then are now moving forward. Now, removing, deprecating basic authentication is certainly one of those things that is happening, and this in the scope of Exchange and Exchange Online is why this is happening with the V1 PowerShell module. It was basic auth with MFA. Modern auth is now the standard, and this new module is 100% modern auth enabled.
Exactly, right. And The other thing that has happened kind of over time has been the PowerShell version, right? So if we think
Yeah.
kind of back to PowerShell 3 and 4, that's when this module was maybe in its bit more of a heyday. Now we're on PowerShell 7, I think it's like 7.1 or
Yeah.
something like that. So
Hmm.
there's been quite a lot of change, quite a lot of advancement, and it was really time. So the PowerShell V2 module has been released for a while. It's been out for about a year or more than that, maybe even. And
Yeah.
actually, I think it is over that. I think it's about a year and a half. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
it has a lot of enhancements. And we chatted about this a little bit. I want to say it was the other day, but I think there's some really powerful commands or commandlets, I should say, inside this module that really help enhance the user experience, but optimize how we can pull data. And you had a really great story about that, about management at scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Just after this module was released, I was working for a rather large, an organization that had a rather large Exchange Online footprint. And I myself was running the older commandlets, sort of a get mailbox commandlet, instead of a get EXO mailbox commandlet. So within this module, there is a small set of exclusive PowerShell commandlets that are, in this module going forward, and they're specifically optimized for bulk data retrieval. So if you're in a very large environment, we're talking 100,000 mailboxes or whatnot. These commandlets are
That's
optimized
right.
for those. Now, it doesn't mean you can't use the old commandlets. It's just these are more efficient. So it was really cool to have that exposure over a year ago, and since then, obviously, I use these commandlets in smaller environments because hey, they're
Yeah,
just
they're
optimized.
really really fast, right? So yeah, I love the way you described that, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot by the way too, and ask for this story.
That's what we do here.
It just really struck me, and I thought, you know what? There's going to be a lot of other administrators out there that have run into this, like, oh heck, why does this take so long to pull all this data? I've only got 50,000
Absolutely.
mailboxes, right? We speak in terms now of only 50,000 mailboxes.
Only.
Who would have ever thought that? But we have
Yep.
50,000 mailboxes. It shouldn't take 6 hours to have something return and complete. And you're absolutely right. It should take more like 5 minutes. Um,
Yeah, and you're taxing your connection into Microsoft running the older inefficient commandlets, and there is a higher risk. Again, I was running commandlets against a set of mailboxes in excess of 100,000, so the margin of error was zero because guess what? If that commandlet fails, you're running it again, and you're taking 6 hours. So very wonderful sort of cherry that's being dangled in front of you in order to use this PowerShell module, notwithstanding the fact that at the end of the day, basic auth is going to be turned off, and you're going to be compelled to use it anyway.
exactly.
Um, so that segues, for what I've blogged specifically into what you blogged about, and it's tell us about how a user can go about, or an admin can go about actually installing the V2 module, and sort of any gotchas that you're aware of, Andrew.
So for me, I like to install PowerShell using PowerShell just because that's kind of the way I am. But in our
Yep.
notes, we'll share a little tidbit as well. And we have to make sure that we turn on the ability for WinRM on our workstation to kind of allow that translation. So we do have to turn on WinRM basic equal true on our workstation. That doesn't mean that we're using basic authentication. What that does is it allows the transition. So I shouldn't say we're not using it. It does. It transitions, however, from basic to modern. So the password is basic authentication. Doesn't mean it's insecure. It's still fully encrypted. Then it transitions to
Hmm.
modern authentication with the MFA. And that's why we have to enable that. So how we install it is we simply bring in that module, right? So we bring in the Exchange module. So install module gives us what we need. And of course, if you already have it, once in a while, just run the update module command. And of course, you do have to be in an elevated session for that to properly work. Just FYI. I always do it myself because I never run elevated until I absolutely have to anymore, which is fantastic, by the way. Thank you, Microsoft. We
Yep.
appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But one of the things that
Yeah.
I did want to kind of bring up quickly and is Viva. So you either love it or you don't. It's kind of a polarizing topic sometimes. But in V2 Exchange uh, PowerShell module, um, we have to use version 2 of the module to be able to do anything with those settings for our users. So if you are still using
Mhm.
V1 and you've been kind of hitting a bit of a brick wall, kind of wondering, why can't I help my users and turn this on or turn this off or change these settings? That might
Yeah.
be part of the challenge. So have a look. And again, we always share the links in the little write up blurb that we post. So just take a look. You can really have a deep dive on the exact commandlets that are available in V2
Yeah.
versus V1. There's quite a big list in here.
Yeah, and they have some additional commandlets in there that are, to manage some of the other custom settings that Microsoft has introduced. And again, you need the V2 version in order to save yourself a whole heap of time. In the older version, there's a little bit of back and forth. Sort of the last point I wanted to make is, what does this mean for admins? If you have some written scripts in your toolbox or in your OneNote, such as Andrew and I both have,
One or two, right?
scripts, one or two that we've accumulated over the years. Yeah, there's some definitely a new process for connecting to Exchange Online, and again, that's covered in the documentation that we'll provide. What does that mean to you? It means you're going to have to update a few of your scripts, or the next time you run them, you're going to have to change, the initial connection line in the script or
Exactly.
whatever. Not a big deal. Your scripts are still good. And in fact, I would argue that you might want to look at your entire scripts and take a look at some of these advanced commandlets, and they might even save you some more work, as we talked about
Exactly.
earlier.
It's one of those nice opportunities that we get, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So this is one of those times
Yeah.
where we can actually take this chant or take this, what am I trying to look for? Change, and be able to
Yeah.
update our existing scripts, even if they're not outdated, and just modernize our commands that we're using in the scripts. So we may be able to optimize, like you were saying, how much data we're actually pulling, how taxing it is on the connection. It's tough because if we're using some of the deprecated commands, not deprecated so much as older commands, that are less
Yeah.
efficient, we can impact our network performance adversely. So our network admins may be a little bit excited when we do one of those, but also it means that people's email can slow down, right? And essentially,
Absolutely.
we're talking about exchange management here. That's the last thing we want to do is get in the way of our users' enjoyment of Exchange Online. So
Or get throttled or something, because again, M365 is a
it
shared
is, yeah.
service, right?
If we run
And
a
you
V1
get your
command over
sites.
and over again and really pull just a ton of data, yep, we may get ourselves throttled for 24 hours. That's absolutely right.
Exactly.
Cool.
Awesome.
So, Mr. McKay, where can I find you online?
Yeah, Andrew, thank you very much. On Twitter, I can be found at @MSCQF, and on YouTube, SoundCloud, and LinkedIn, I can be found at Microsoft Cloud Quick Fix. And besides being in front of your computer, diligently working all day, Andrew, where can we find you?
I'm just feeling it today, that's all. So you can always find me at Azure Tracks and azuretracks.com for the blog site. So, Ryan, thank you so much again for joining us. Really appreciate these conversations. I always learn something when we have these chats.
For sure, Andrew. Thank you very much. We'll talk
Perfect.
soon.
Thank you for listening and joining us in our podcast today. And until next time, bye for now.